I'm really trying to assess where Kenyans are and what their priorities are. I feel like if Kenyans were to really measure the track record of the president, they'll be looking at, for example, yesterday, a lady called Grace Mulei, who protested against Shah and went direct to the office of the cabinet secretary, was arrested, for simply saying, this is not working. The assessment of Kenyans would be associated with, for example, why would I be abducted for speaking truth? The assessment of Kenyans would be, why are we killing people simply because they are saying you're getting it wrong? This is the way to go. I feel like it's not even a tribal issue. It's not even a Rigiji issue. It's not even who President Ruto is or not. What you've described as online rage is really the reality across the country. I've given you a practical example, Trevor. The president has toured Western Kenya for the last 6 days, and I want to dare the systems. He has all the structures from NIS all the way up. I want them to really do an assessment, a very honest assessment of his trip to Western Kenya, and give him a clear picture of what the normal Mwananchi feels. Remember, Trevor, I started by providing a very clear situation. I contested on a Kenya Kwanza ticket. Currently, I'm working with members of parliament across board. I have Kenya Kwanza, I have Azimio, I have broad-based. So I'm very measured in terms of my words. But I will not walk far away from where Kenyans are. Kenyans are at the point where this is not alarming to them. You withdraw the security of a CJ, who has not really bothered to comment, clearly about abductions. They don't care about that. They care about, if Trevor speaks today and is abducted, who will look out for him? It is Kenyans looking out for each other. The government ought to look out for Kenyans. The reality is, Kenyans are at a place where they feel like the track record of this government does not reflect the promises that were made during campaigns. And I really want to urge the president. It's not even just about balancing the regions and all those things. That's okay. We can deal with that during elections. But I always say, Trevor, that post-election, when politics end, leadership must start. We are at the face of leadership, but we are not seeing that leadership. We are still seeing political rhetorics and political gimmicks and political games. Kenyans are only asking for one thing: provide leadership that not only brings everybody on board, but responds every single day to the day-to-day challenges Kenyans are going through. And I want to say, people are mistaking, and I've seen people making reference to Mau Mau revolution, I don't know what. I feel like we are not even fighting the fight Mau Mau's fought. Because Mau Mau's were fighting foreigners in our land. We are fighting greed amongst ourselves. We are fighting psychophancy amongst us. And what we need in this country is the revolution of the mind, where we now evolve to a place where you are empathetic. You're not just showing it by virtue of cosmetic. I call the Honorable Njeri to appease her with some tokenism for me to look good as a leader. People want to see the genuine action. I honestly feel like President Ruto means well for this country. I want to believe that. But he's losing it every day when he assumes that by him keeping promises and making more promises and new promises without fulfilling even one, that is where the problem is. For example, it is very unfortunate, Trevor, when he went to Western Kenya, and specifically Mumias Sugar Company, and he spoke about bonuses to farmers. There were questions raised. MP Salasia raised some very legitimate questions. He was like, number one, are these bonuses targeted at only Mumias Sugar Company or sugar companies across board? That was question number one. Number two, is Mumias company still entirely a government-owned company? Then the third question is, let's say he's right. Where is this budget coming from? Are we living in the 2010 dispensation of our constitution where they have to approve any appropriation? So, you see, those fundamental questions are coming not even from the people seated next to the president, but the people themselves. Are we missing out on leadership? It's a fundamental question that we need to ask. So my thinking is, Trevor, for us to actually be where Kenyans are, we need to stop putting these headlines of Koome and leaders and the president and what. We need to put headlines of the state of Kenyans. When Kenyans are abducted, why are we not putting headlines around it? Why is it that Koome is a priority over Grace Mulee, who was arrested for speaking out on behalf of mothers who are suffering? You remember when they stormed into the office of the CS? Imagine the press conference was actually addressing Shah and giving assurance to Kenyans that everything is working. But government is not humble enough to, step back and say, okay, why are these women frustrated? Who is accountable to the Kenyan people? That is where Kenyans are, Trevor. And for us to get it right, and I'm saying this with a lot of love for our country, for our government, we must really retract our steps. Because, Trevor, it's not very easy, it's not very difficult to lose a country. We saw it last year, and last year was more of an example. People are assuming these Gen Z stories. Trevor, I've walked into meetings, I've met with young people, and every time I'm going to discuss or talk to young people, sometimes I have to speak as a CEO of KYPA, and I want to defend the members of parliament. But the moment I rise to defend parliament, do you know the feedback I get is a backlash. The first question is, why are you defending those people who've never defended us when we are being abducted? Then I'm like, okay, why is abduction such a serious issue? Because that is where Kenyans are.
Okay.
The level of poverty has gone higher. That's why when you go to Western Kenya and they pay people, they will eat. Then the next question they will ask, where was Raila Odinga? They don't even care that a president was in that county to help launch some very serious economic programs. They're only like, when does he get done and he leaves? So Trevor, it's not as simple as we are making it look. It's bigger than Koome security being withdrawn. It's bigger than a mere visit to Western Kenya. It is bigger than Rigiji and Wamunyoro. It is about the Kenyan people and their welfare, their well-being, their survival of the day. It is about, what really is pinching the Kenyan people, and it's the economy.
All right. Jerry, let Jerry respond to also what you said earlier. Yes.
Trevor, before I respond to Arnold, allow me to mention the concerning issue of Grace Mulee. I could count in the video around over 4 police officers, and they were not doing it in a manner that was decent. This is a woman. She's of advanced age. She is unwell. She is in hospital. She's undergoing treatment. And then I see that the DCI, after I think an online uproar, actually updated Kenyans on what the arrest was about. A misdemeanor. Apparently, it is alleged disturbance. What disturbance? I mean, can you really arrest a woman of over 60 years who is unwell, who is in hospital, send over 4 police officers?
More than actually.
More than 4 police officers they were actually dragging her. That kind of inhumane reaction to issues that Kenyans are facing. She raised a valid question on Shah. When the president was in Embu, and I have said, he brought up the issue of Shah working, and the people resoundingly made it clear that they did not agree with his sentiments. So I have an issue with the government in terms and in regard of how they perceive Kenyans and how they perceive feedback from Kenyans. They've grown so hostile to it. And I don't know where we lost it, because I know the president, from the way I knew him when we were campaigning, he is someone who actually listens to Kenyans' issues. Then now we see a totally different demeanor from him. We hear different utterances from him, disregarding the very same people who actually put him to power. If I'm to correct my friend Maliba here, it was a classism issue that we raised. It was a hustler narrative, you know. We were agitating for the masses, for the common wananchi, for the mass populace of Kenya that earns or lives, you know, perhaps even below $200 a day. And when Maliba says...
$1 a day.
When Maliba says that that Kenyans don't vote along tribal lines, you know, we're not being factual with ourselves. We just need to look at the results, you know. Let's not be idealistic. Let's look at the results of the last election. The only time that Kenyans did not vote along tribal lines was when they were kicking out the tyrannical government of the former President Moi in 2002. I recall I was I think I was around... maybe I was in nursery, but I recall people saying that they are going to vote out, you know, this person who's been there forever. But if you look at the last election, Raila Odinga was a candidate. He comes from Luo Nyanza region. He got majority of his votes in the Luo Nyanza region. If you compare with the candidacy of William Samoei Ruto in the Nyanza region, who does not come from the region, he didn't get the votes there. That would say could be quantified to perhaps argue that Kenyans vote on issues. If you look at Central or Mount Kenya region, majority of the votes went to President William Samoei Ruto. He had a deputy from the region. If you look at Rift Valley region, majority of the votes, you know, I mean, I know, my very good friend and senior, Martha Karua, whom I love very much and who we really apologize to. But I still believe that given the choice between, I said who I love very much. You know, it was personal.
You said you apologized.
Yeah, I said whom I love very much, and I always apologize to, because we didn't really give her the votes of the support in Kirinyaga County. But what I want to say is that given the choice between William Samoei Ruto and Raila Amolo Odinga, I mean, we've seen what Raila can do. We've seen for me, he's always been the corner artist. You know, he's always been the person who's waiting to join government when government has been formed. So given the choice, I believe that we didn't have an alternative in the last election.